Hi guys, Freddy here, welcome back to the desktop for another retro RPG, and this week I would like to present this, Wraith the Oblivion. Now this is the fourth game in the original World of Darkness lineup. I understand it was also the least successful of the games, and this particular one is the first edition, which came out in 1994. There was a second edition in 1996, and then a 20th anniversary edition in 2018, which isn't 20 years, so I'm not quite sure how that worked. Now, before anything else, I want to mention the cover on this, because I want to cut in a picture, because the logo is glow in the dark, and there's a little skeleton or something through the keyhole in the lock here. And I really like that. They'd made the werewolf cover with the big slashes in it, which was very, very cool. But when you got the paperback, the cover would just fold over, it would tear, and you'd introduced a point of weakness into the cover with the big slashes across it that would just ruin the cover of the book. But they put into Wraith glow-in-the-dark sections, which is pretty cool. So I'll slot in an image around about here so you can see what it looked like last night when I put the lights out. But it was an interesting cover. I don't think they did anything with Mage. I don't remember Changeling having a fancy cover. I really liked the cover to Vampire First Edition, but Werewolf and Wraith both had gimmicks on the covers. Anyway, Wraith is a game about playing spirits of the dead, essentially. You are playing a ghost, somebody who has passed away in the world of darkness. And it is one of the two most perfect games. Now, I have to admit, I've never actually read Mage. It just never appealed to me. I've read Ars Magica, which is the sort of ancient setting for Mage, or what Mage has sprung from, and it's very good. But mages in the current day didn't really interest me. Vampire is a beautiful, evocative setting. It's got some fantastic history built in. Werewolf is just a really, really fun game. Changeling's a bit quirky, but Wraith is a lovely, lovely game. Some really interesting rules in it, and I can see how it would be a load of fun to play as a campaign game. But let's read the back cover, and then I'll talk more as we flick through the pages. So, a storytelling game of death and damnation. With each passing day, Oblivion encroaches further. With every soul that surrenders to shadow, the end draws ever nearer. The world is not as we knew it. Decay's sweet stench now clings to all we once held dear. It is called the Shadowlands. In death there is nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. From the hate and fear, the pain and bitterness, the shadow within. Hope is fragile, and few have the courage, the passion to face death and say, I do not go gentle into that good night. And the copyright information, obviously it's from White Wolf, who published the World of Darkness games. And it's that. You're playing a spirit in the World of Darkness, and you are struggling to survive intact in a very similar way to Vampire. If we start flicking through. In Vampire, you've got the very strange concept of the beast. So, as you give in to the feral urges within, as you become more monstrous, you lose your humanity, and you slip towards losing your character, them just becoming a monstrous creature. But Wraith has that as well. You're fighting against the shadow. And the shadow, instead of just being your humanity score, your shadow is a second character. And if you do particularly badly in a scene, the shadow comes out and takes over your character. And generally the shadow is played by another player. So everybody has a couple of character sheets. They've got their own character that they're trying to play, and they've got somebody else's shadow, which is against basically playing against that character. So we've got the background information here. The underworld, the Shadowlands. So as well as haunting the world of darkness and the real world, there are deeper levels where the spirits can travel. And I have to admit, that didn't interest me. Legions of the Damned, the Far Shores, Stygia, those who guide, those who rule. It's all black printing on a very complex background, so it's not the easiest to read. Servitude and liberty, transcendence, valediction, being and nothingness. Let's keep flicking on. The introduction. And we've got beautiful, beautiful artwork. It is quite horrific. This is a very dark game. Like I've heard Vampire described as players discussing who's more doomed than each other. Wraith is another one like that. You are doomed. You're dead already. There's not a lot of light in your future. All you can do is hope to survive, to carry on with your existence without giving in to your shadow and becoming a spectre. Various language there, the setting, aspects of the underworld, layers of the underworld, the Shadowlands, the Shroud, Haunts, Tempest, Nihils, Maelstroms, the Far Shores, Stygia, Necropoli, Domains, Citadels. A revision of the imperial history of Stygia. It mentions how various terrible actions in the world lead to big maelstroms across the land of the dead as many spirits charge in. So the atrocities during World War II, etc., etc., just so many spirits charged in, so much energy was released into the land of the dead that it was just chaos, just big storms tearing everything that the dead were trying to build up. The Restless Dead. Life Among the Dead. All just the details of the background here and what the campaign and game's going to be like. Outsiders, Ferrymen and Spectres, Shades, Malfians. Storytelling, because of course this is a storytelling game. Elements of Wraith. So describing to the games master, you know, what it's going to be like. Isolation. Triumph, horror and terror. Romance, knowing when to stop. What your chronicle's going to be like. The antagonists, just helping the games master come up with what his campaign is going to be. Conflicts, very nicely done, really taking games master by the hand and guiding them, because it is quite a complex setting. The rules, so how to roll dice. Then we're on to character. So you come up with your concept, your nature and your demeanor, you choose your attributes. I'll come back a second. You've got your personality archetypes. What else we got? Traits. So your advantages and disadvantages and that kind of stuff. Your attributes, you know, what your strength equals, your dexterity. The different abilities and talents, so basically skills within a storytelling game. Different backgrounds to help flash out your character. Arcanos, so that the abilities you get, the guilds you can be part of. Argos, Castigate. These are like the vampire clans, which basically give you access to its starting abilities and how cheap it is going to be to buy certain abilities. Embody, Fatalism, Inhabit. Keening, Lifeweb, Moliate, so you can transform your bodies. Outrage, Pandemonium, Phantasm, Puppetry. Usury. Then we've got onto the Shadow. So this is your dark side. This is the nihilistic, self-destructive part of you, where you as a Wraith are trying to survive, and I'll come on to how Wraiths try and survive past death. The Shadow's wanting to destroy you, and you choose the sort of weakness there. So your Shadow archetype, the Abuser. This Shadow represents the battered inner child who has come full circle, grown up out of her terrible beginnings to inflict more pain on others. The Director. This Shadow is aloof and quiet. He seems mild-mannered enough. Indeed, he is quite gentlemanly and presents a strong facade of hot honour. He is the master manipulator. The Freak. Knows all your secrets and gets a perverse kick out of them. The Leech. is the hole inside you, a pit of raw need dug by neglect and hate. The martyr wishes only to quit its existence as soon as possible. He may try and drag others down with him. The monster is foul and unknowable. The parent, overprotective, loving and caring. This shadow wants to keep you nice and neat and clean. She wants to love you to love only her. She wants you to listen to her. And if you don't listen, she'll make you feel guilty for not listening. The perfectionist. This shadow sets limitations and goals that far exceed your capacity to accomplish them. The pusher. The pusher is your buddy, your pal. He is helpful, solicitous, and charming. He is always ready to offer assistance for a price. The rationalist. The shadow is the reasoning, thinking person's shadow. She calmly discusses your situation, gently explaining why you should do what she wants, and totally logical reasons for doing so. Of course, her logic is designed to lead you down the path to oblivion. And you've got angst, dark passions, the abilities, and the power of the shadow. And they've got a little character sheet, so you can see what power they've got, their various thorns, the ways they dig into you, and dark passions, their abilities. Angst represents the degree of pain and isolation a wraith feels, and indicates the relative strength of the shadow. If the shadow has 10 points of temporary angst while it is dominant, it can trade these for 1 point of permanent angst. As permanent angst grows, the character slips ever nearer, closer to oblivion. And it goes through the details of those. We're onto sort of systems and character rules, so experience points. The rules for healing, mortals, mental states, the shroud. So we've got drama, so cutting things up into scenes and turns, how action is done. Dramatic scenes. Going through all the things, so we've got sneaking and seduction, and we've got dream interpretation, searching, tracking, just all the usual stuff you'll do in a role-playing game. Details of the combat system, firearms and the like, melee, freeform combat, an example of play, and an appendix where we've got antagonists. Now I've kind of skipped over how wraiths survive. As a wraith, you are trying to survive by keeping your memory in the real world alive. So essentially, when you're creating your character, you may be creating somebody who was a musician. And as you go on, some of your time will be spent making sure people remember your music and play it. You know, coaxing a young musician to pick up one of your songs. Making sure that, you know, things are discovered by a radio station or whatever. So your memory is kept alive and you get energy from that. Because if you're forgotten, you lose power from the real world. And there's loads of ways of doing this. The game makes it very clear that, you know, Adolf Hitler's very well remembered because he's famous. And you can start off with a certain amount of fame. But of course that costs some of your starting points. We're going through the different opponents you could face here. Artifacts. Calendar. A setting for Wraith. But much of a Wraith campaign will be spent like a vampire campaign, where every so often the vampires have to go off and feed. And you'll roleplay that. The Wraiths have to go off and keep their memories alive in the real world. They have to go out and do these individual things every so often to stop them being forgotten and to keep them powered and alive in the land of the dead. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant idea. The combination of the shadow, where another player is playing against you, and the fact that you have to interact with the real world to stop you fading into obscurity and fading away, is just a wonderful one. So we've got Chant of the Guilds here. Some last words. Wraith is cursed. There's no other way to say it. Mind you, I don't believe in curses, but you can't argue with the facts. Something's going on. Getting this far has been a real miracle. Even as I write these last words, I keep looking behind my back, half expecting something to spring. I can understand that. It's a very dark game. Mark Rein-Hagen here sort of describes the ideas behind it and what came to him. He had a concept with a game he called Inferno. The idea was you played someone trapped in hell, and your goal basically was to either become a powerful demon or to escape. And there's similarities to Wraith there. You are trying to become powerful in the land of the dead, or find ways to remain interacting with the real world. Because when you're forgotten, you just can't interact anymore. You just fade away into obscurity as far as the real world is considered. And we've got the character sheets here, and some shadow character sheets, and an advert for Changeling. Now, I've kind of jumped around there because there were a lot of ideas in Wraith. I do love it. It's a perfect game concept. I don't think it's a particularly fun game for every game group to play. Much like Vampire, I think it can be a bit too dark and stressful, but there is a lot to get your teeth into, and I think if you take your game seriously and you're role-playing really seriously, then Wraith's definitely a game to consider. Definitely one of my favourite role-playing games to sit and read and consider, although I probably would never play it because my play style is I'm playing a game for fun. And I don't think Wraith would be fun as such, although it would be an enjoyable experience if you get the difference. Anyway, as always, I think I've whittled on far too much. So please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. But as always, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.